We have Omani joining us. We're so happy to have you here with us.
Happy to be here.
So let's start the conversation. I'm going to throw out a couple words to you. And I just want you to give me a brief definition of what these words to mean to you as it relates to Black love and just relationships in general.
I like it.
Commitment.
First word, this is commitment.
Yeah.
Commitment. Commitment, when I think of commitment, I think of everlasting understanding that two or more parties, not just individual, but two or more parties. It could be a team, it could be a partnership, but they have that understanding that through thick and thin,
Right.
they're going to work it out.
I
They
like
understand that it's better to work in cohesion than in division, and that's the true understanding of commitment to me.
I like that. We're going to circle back to that. Healing. What about healing?
Woo, healing.
Yeah.
Healing is imperative for life. We all go through it. Many going through it right now.
Right.
But healing it's a circumference of balance where we all should be and understand we can be.
Yeah.
I would just say that.
I like that. Okay. So far, so good. Intimacy.
Intimacy, the I word. The I word. But intimacy.
I can't take you serious right now.
It's okay. We all be professional.
Yeah.
But the I word.
Yeah.
No, but in all seriousness, I think people lose the concept and thinking solely physical. And I don't believe that by a long shot.
I agree.
And I believe the ultimate intimacy
Yeah.
is that connection emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually.
Yes.
Indeed.
I love that. That is so important. Trust.
Trust. Trust is inevitable when there should be a good understanding that with trust, that's better efficiency, that's better proficiency, that's better understanding, and it's more faith to me.
Yeah.
So trust is so vital, in my life. Everyone I come in contact with, because without that trust, it's very hard. It's very hard to know someone truly has your best interest at heart.
That is so true. That is so very true. What about resilience?
Resilience. I think of perseverance and determination and focus, laser focus. And it's so critical. But I'll just say those words for now because I could talk about resilience for quite some time.
Yes.
We
have lived, so we can really talk about resilience.
Indeed.
What about vulnerability? This is something I know we've tapped on a couple
tapped
times.
onto it.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Vulnerability it's tough as a man, and I'm sure as a woman. But I would just say, just cogently, that we can see the other side to be at more peace within ourselves,
Right.
to be a better father, to be a better husband, to be a better provider, to be a better child of God, when we understand that being vulnerable, especially to people that we care about, we can truly come to fruition of what we want to accomplish in life. Because they will understand what we go through.
Yeah.
And if they truly care about us, they'll be there for us.
I should have ended on that one. I have one more, but I love what you said, and I just want to take a pen in that for a second. I got to take a pen in all of them.
You gotta do it.
You had some good answers.
You said just words, so I'm not trying to break into soliloquies and paragraphs.
I love it. Okay, so the last one is legacy.
Legacy. I think about that often.
Yeah.
I really do. And when I think about legacy, I think how it's a luxury in this day and age.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's a luxury to not even have health problems when you think about it.
Yeah.
And so when I think about legacy, and I'm thankful, I'm healthy, there's so many not in my position of life, whether I have $1 or $100 or $50, or it's not about monetary value to me, you know, but that legacy is something your children could look and say, you know what, my father, my mother, they did everything in their humanly power for, number one, to appreciate and value the word of God.
Yes.
And number two, they really did everything they can to provide the best life for them and those that looked up to them.
Absolutely.
So to me, it's just everything. I think about it often, and I want to live the best legacy I can.
That is
50, 60, 70, 80 years old.
Yeah.
For them, indeed.
And you know, I think one of the best legacies you can leave for your kids is being happy.
Yes.
Being vulnerable, teaching them how to trust, teaching them about commitment, healing, intimacy, all these things we just talked about.
Yes.
Because, you know, sometimes I think we focus too much on, you know, generational wealth and legacy in that way, in those terms, financially, which was just great, right? But if you leave a broken child with a lot of money, then what do they have?
Seriously, what do they have?
You know?
Right.
So I think that I like that you said that, because it's holistic.
Mm-hmm.
Life is so holistic. It's not just monolithic, right? And sometimes I think we fail ourselves by not seeing that. Mm-hmm. But I want to go back to vulnerability, because, you know, it's one of my favorite topics, because I do think so many people struggle. I was one of them with authenticity. And I think sometimes when you are not vulnerable or don't feel safe enough to be vulnerable, you tend to pick up what they call now imposter syndrome. So what do you think about, because you had touched on, you know, invulnerability, like being around people who allow you to be yourself.
Right.
How do you think that kind of shows up when you are not around the right people and you don't feel comfortable with being yourself?
Right. When you're not vulnerable, and there's a time, you know, and there's a place, and we all should understand that as well. If we're in a situation where there are, you know, it's a award-winning event and a leadership conference,
right?
You know, it's always positive to be your authentic self, but we also should be aware of our surroundings as well, because the other side is, and it's not being over aware, but individuals can use our vulnerability for a negative. True. So we need to be cognizant of that as well.
Right.
You know, so I look at it as like, I do everything in my power always to be vulnerable, whether it may not be accepted, whether it's in business, whether it's in friendship, because it helps me sleep better at night.
Yes.
Because I suffer with many years of putting a lot of pressure on myself to want to succeed. Yeah. And I wasn't tapping into that vulnerability. So after work, 5 o'clock, and everything, projects are done, I'm still thinking about it. Like, I could have did this, I could have said that. But I became more at peace when I started to realize that it's okay. And people realize this is Omani.
Right.
We love it. This is who he is.
Right.
He's not perfect by a long shot, but this is who he is. And when you communicate with Omani, this is what you're going to get.
Right.
You know, and it's no surprise. And that's what people value more than anything.
Yes. And that's what's important to know. I think when you start to crack open that shell and you come out of your cocoon, you start to realize that people really are okay with who you really are.
That's right.
They would have been okay with that from day one.
Right.
But you had to be okay with being unapologetically you.
Right.
I was just telling you, I saw recently online is a guy talking about women and femininity and the lack thereof of feminine women these days. What he's saying is that a lot of Black men go to women of other cultures because Black women lack feminine energy. What do you think about that comment?
Well, I got to be very candid, and I would respectfully disagree with that individual, because it's not black and white. It really isn't. It's when you just put it out there in that pervasive statement of any individual, I respect the opinion, but I would deeply disagree, because race, heart, love, it's all completely different,
Yeah.
you know? And we should all love from the heart. And those that touch our heart, regardless, whether they may have a little less femininity, a little more masculinity, it's it's just so vital to me just to
Right.
measure that and understand that no, God didn't give us a perfect body, just have a perfect balance of 80%
Exactly.
masculine and 20% feminine, or vice
Right,
versa.
right,
He didn't give
right.
that to us.
Right.
So, and we don't know the levels in someone's body anyway.
Right.
So it really comes down to just how we are treated and how we are respected.
Yes.
And to me, that's the ultimate value and consistency that someone brings in your life.
I agree. And honestly, I think when I heard that comment, frustrated me because I don't think we give each other enough grace.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't have these examples in front of you, you have to learn them on your own. So, what do you think about the Black man's role in relationships and how Black love is viewed from a man's point of view, from a Black man's point of view? And commitment.
Right,
Love and
right,
commitment.
right. You know, we don't have all the answers,
Right.
you know, but I say this, you know, as a Black man, that it's our job. It is our job when we make that commitment
Yeah.
to that individual, that woman that we want to spend the rest of our life with.
Yeah.
It's our job to first realize that we didn't come into this with the same potential culture.
Right.
You know,
right.
one may have been brought up in another country. One may have had a family in alcoholism.
Right.
One may have had a family in polygamy. You know?
Right. Right.
There's a lot of factors where I communicate with people like, wow, like I didn't know this is how you were raised.
Yeah.
But I say that to say it's our job as a Black man, and I touched on this last time, because we are 13% of United States of America.
Wow.
So when I think of that number, it touches me,
Yeah.
because I know it's not even at 13%, really, because
No, it's not.
half are unfortunately impoverished, incarcerated, low income,
Yeah.
and then now you have your less than probably 4%
Exactly.
that it even have opportunity and resources to make a difference and impact. That concerns me with legacy. So when I think about that, every relationship, and I tell my son this often, you value it, you learn from it.
Yeah.
You don't lose nothing, you learn from it.
Yeah.
And you grow to make sure that every experience, you can make sure you learn how to be a better committed person.
Right.
Learn how to be a better communicator. Learn to have a better balance in your emotional intelligence. Because if we put all that together, we can win as one. We
Yeah.
can win as one, as a team. Indeed.
And that's so, it's the team.
Right.
It is the team. So we're having to unlearn so much and relearn.
That's right.
Generationally, just culturally. I mean, so it's not just what family you grew up in, but it's also our culture in general had to deal with these things. And like you said, women specifically, you know, being vulnerable wasn't a thing. So there's a lot we have to unlearn. What's the difference between masculinity and the alpha male?
Interesting. I think the word alpha male gets a little unclear and very ambiguous. And your shared experience of dealing with those alpha males, that is very perplexing to me, because when I think about that, even the percentage of the likelihood that those individuals were, I'm alpha and I'm male and this is how I live my life, a lot of it, respectfully, may be a facade, and it may be not who their character is inside, and they may have not tapped into being vulnerable and understanding that it's okay to be who you are. You know, you don't have to feed into society what, you know, or reality shows or, you know, what is in any magazine or on television. Be who you are.
Yeah.
If it's a little less feminine, that's okay. Maybe the woman you're interested in may be interested interested in that.
Yes. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So me personally, yes, I have my side, you know, I'm putting the business out there, but I have my side. Well, I know I can be that alpha where I want to always protect mine and my family and my best interests. But I have that side to where my mother raised me as a single parent mother for many years, to where I had a lot of women around me. I had my grandmother and my aunt. They can't push that, alpha male on you. Like, you need some socks, baby. What's the bacon, baby? So I'm gonna keep it real.
No, it's true. It's true.
So everybody's raised differently.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of women that raised me up to be the best man I can be, but they couldn't put that masculinity in me.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it took my stepfather, who raised me phenomenally, bless his heart, before his passing, and show me how to be tough on the basketball court, or make sure how I defend myself properly in case I need to defend myself. But pushing to understand the balance, which is the masculinity side, and just my perspective, to understand a woman is designed differently, and a man is designed differently. And just, I realized that it's so important for me. Masculinity is that balance of life. It really is, to that feminine energy. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, we could talk about it.
What do you think about the statement toxic masculinity? That's been a new phrase that's been kind of tossed around for the last few years.
I wouldn't want to be attached to that. The first word, the T word.
Toxic masculinity.
No.
What do you think about this toxic masculinity?
Well, just being a proud man, black man, I would have to defend us in saying it's not just masculinity of any toxicity. It could be, feminine as well, and let's just keep it real. I think it's mutually just as probably equal. I don't think one is more than the other.
Right.
Because I could tell you some experiences in my life where it's like, wow, what is going on? I'm being the best gentleman I can be. I'm being, and even in my 20s, but there's many toxic individuals that are just extremely narcissistic and will do everything in their power to make you suffer.
Isn't that something?
But just to your point, in masculinity, I'm sure there are many, potentially countless males that can be toxic, because it comes down to ethics. To me, it comes down to ethics, and it comes down to your morals. What are really your morals? Do you want to win in life? Do you see that, you may not believe in the Bible necessarily, or religion necessarily, but do you have a faith? Do you believe in anything other than yourself? Because I know I can't live this life just leaning on my own reconnaissance. I just can't.
You better say
I can't do
there
it.
is no way.
Oh, God is so good.
That's a whole nother show.
Yeah.
And that is so true. And that, leading back. And the reason I'm kind of chopping these two things up, femininity and masculinity, is because going back to relationships.
Right.
And getting to that space on your journey to finding your person, it's so important to understand yourself. We are not doing each other a service by, pitting ourselves against one another.
That's right.
So Assets of Love serves to be the positive, to be the light in the community. So that's so important to focus on the light and not the darkness.
You mind if I say something?
No.
Because you said 3 words, assets of love.
Yeah.
And I touched on it, we changed the topic last time, but when I hear that word asset and being the opposite of a liability, when I think of your movement, because it's culturally empowering and there's nothing like what you're doing, and I'm so proud of what you're doing, because it is stemming. There's a verse in the Bible, I believe it's John 14 or 15, 4 and 5, and he says, you remain in me and I will remain in you, and he is the vine and we're the branches. And I say to say is this movement of assets of love, it has so many branches, and that fruit I've never seen. And I know, and I'm claiming it is going to be so successful.
I claim it. I'm
so successful. There's so much negative nuances about people of color, and I want that stigma to be changed sooner than later.
Yes.
And this is putting us in such a phenomenal light, So I just want to say that.
Thank you so
phenomenal,
much.
innovative.
Thank you. It's coming from the heart. And I always say this, God gave me this one day and said, just go do this. I knew that, I was eventually going to circle back to this because it is something that is important. And so thank you so much for saying that. And because I love us.
That's right.
I love us. So I wanted to ask you before we wrap up, what has been your journey, if you don't mind us probing a little bit? What things would you change about how you show up in a relationship?
Looking at,
whether it be past or present.
Right. Looking at the past, looking at the present, and sometimes we go in that hindsight and we just think and we realize things we could have done better, but the past, and we didn't touch on it too much, but it has taken me to realize that mentorship is so important. I wouldn't be where I'm at today without those mentors that I know I can call. They may not get back to me 2 o'clock in the morning, but they gonna call me. They gonna get back to me 8 o'clock in the morning. It's hard to find an unconditional mentor and a sponsor or someone that really believes in your best interest, but not just about your career. And I say that because there's several mentors that I've had in the last 20 years of my life. They have helped me and shaped me to understand the power in relationships and the mistakes I did make as a man, and tap into some of those mistakes were out of my control because how I was raised in many cases. My mom being a single parent, my father having many different wives. I had to see that, when I was younger. And so once I got in my adolescence and in college, that was tough for me because I was trying to find myself and trying to find religion, trying to study different forms of religion, trying to just find the perfect monotheistic religion and, trying to understand who I am. And then I had my son at 21 years old. So then I'm learning how to be a father. So there was many factors in just chapters, and by the time I hit 30, it's like, wow, it's been something else. And then I have my daughter, and then I look back at it, no mistakes, because at the end of the day, that's what shaped me. And individuals, it could have been a girlfriend that I may have had in 2004 or 2005 that her father touched my life in ways to this day. Don't even really speak to him too often, but just as a small innocuous example, showing me little things how to be a man. It could be just a tie or how to wear a watch, and then years later, studying and realizing, learning from my mistakes. But I say that to say, as men, it's so critical to constantly want to self-improve because we're going to make mistakes. And if we want to be at a place where we can be at peace of mind and give an abundance of love and care for that woman and that family, it is so important that we really try our best to learn from our mistakes and always want to get better than we were yesterday.
I agree.
So important.
Talk to God, to, tap into your creativity, to, nurture yourself, it's so important. We never know when God is going to bless us with that person. So the point is to always self-improve, work on self-care, self-love, and just be the best self you can be.
Right.
You
said metaphor, not even to cut you off. Something I think about all the time is, and before I got any serious relationships, to realize it's so important to measure twice and cut once. It really is. Because we're going to make mistakes. So
explain that.
Measure twice and cut once. And meaning that, I think it's a carpentry term, and I'm not skilled in carpentry like that. But if you just cut once, it might be a disaster fast, or you might have to start all over from scratch. But if you just measure a couple of times, because it may be inaccuracies in our judgment, etc. Just measure a couple times and try to get that best assessment and then make that cut.
I love that.
And it's, to me, that I live by that because it helps just as a whole, just relationships, interpersonal relationships. And so I'm going to say that. Indeed.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I'm whispering because, whenever I'm talking to Omani, I feel like I have to whisper on the mic. So
It's all good.
so ideally, if, you could change anything about how we love each other as a culture, what would that be?
Oh, that's a powerful question. Oh, that's a powerful question. What we can change as a culture.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I would love for us to realize the great Frederick Douglass, one of my mentors I've never got a chance to meet, but the great Frederick Douglass said, if there's no struggle, there's no progress.
Oh, I
so
love that.
if we just realize that it's okay to struggle.
Yes.
I struggle, you've struggled.
Yeah.
We've been there. We struggle in relationships. We struggle as husbands and wives.
Right.
Struggle.
Yeah.
But without that struggle, we can't see that promised land of the progress.
Right.
Nothing's overnight. They say the grass is greener where you water it.
Right.
And if we just apply that as a whole and just unity with our people in that 13%,
right.
Imagine the power we have just globally. Just imagine.
That'd be crazy.
Oh my God.
That would be crazy.
But it comes back to education.
It comes back to education.
And our youth realizing that. That's what I'm passionate about, helping the marginalized communities and disenfranchised, because they have to understand that.
Yeah.
It starts with them. Imagine in 2035 what it's going to be like. You know what I mean? So I would love for us to be in that position to teach as much as we can.
We are going to continue this journey.
Indeed.
Of Black love and self-love.
That's right.
I think the true generational wealth is in relationship. And if you find a partner that is, that you're equally yoked with, you can build whatever you want to build.
Move mountains.
You can move mountains. That's the goal. That's the mission, to bring awareness to that and our amazing community. So thank you for joining me today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I might have to have you back.
Oh, please do. I love to be here, and I thank you for everything you're doing.
Okay.
It's phenomenal.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much. I
you, Tami.
appreciate you.
Indeed.